You've got a lot to do. Wouldn't it be nice to have a little less on your mind? Eide Bailly can take the pressure off your day-to-day accounting, taxes, data issues, and other business needs. What inspires you inspires us.
This is the Art of Dental Finance and Management podcast, brought to you by Art Wiederman, CPA with Eide Bailly. Whether it's taxes and investing or planning wisely, Art is the expert to make your dental practice profitable. At Eide Bailly, what inspires you inspires us. We provide a suite of accounting and advisory services dedicated to the total care of your practice. Visit our website to access our tools and resources tailored for dentists, eidebailly.com/dentist. That's EIDEBAILLY.com/dentist. This podcast is distributed with the understanding that Art Wiederman, CPA, and Eide Bailly, LLP are not rendering legal, accounting, or other professional advice. Listeners should consult with their business advisors before acting on any of the information or opinions shared. If you have questions and or feedback, make sure to email Art over at awiederman@eidebailly.com. That's AWIEDERMAN @EIDEBAILLY.com. You can also give Art a call at 657-279-3243. Without further delay, here's your host, Dental CPA Art Wiederman.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA. I'm your host, Art Wiederman. Welcome to my podcast. We're in our 5th year doing the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA, and I am a proud dental division director at the CPA firm of Eide Bailly. I'm located in Southern California. Our office is in the city of Tustin. And I've been a dental CPA for September will be 39 years. And in fact, it's interesting. I will be, by the time this podcast airs, I will have just celebrated the 40th anniversary of the day I met my wife. I was thinking about that the other day. It's just crazy how time flies and goes by. But it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey, and a wonderful journey with you, my audience. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the emails we get and the calls we get and all that stuff. And today I've got a great interview for you. And we haven't done a show on dental marketing and growing your patient base in a while. And I've wanted to do this, and the opportunity came up. And my guest today is going to be John Riley, who's one of the best dental marketing experts in the country. He's the executive vice president of Amplify 360. And we're going to do a very interesting conversation about dental marketing. Now, all of you know how passionate I am about changing your relationship with insurance companies and how the average reimbursement is 58 to 62% of your UCR. So I encourage doctors to look at changing the relationship. So we're going to talk about that. And as you know, doctors, if you have, some of you listening have, hopefully many of you have changed your relationship, as much as I would love to tell you that, you're going to keep 100% of your patients if you go out of network with an insurance plan, I got news for you, you're not. I wish you did, but you're not. You're going to, if you do it right, we hopefully retain 75 to 85%. But we're going to talk about that with John because he's got a lot of experience with working with clients with that. And then with the patients you lose, then we would like to replace them with patients that are not on insurance. And we're going to talk about all the different things in dental marketing and what the most current trends are. So John is my guy today, and he's going to help us through that in a minute. But before we get to John, I got a couple things to share with you. As always, I want to thank my incredible marketing partner, Decisions in Dentistry Magazine. Lorraine Kent and her team are second to none. Their magazine is the #1 clinical magazine in the country. The top who's who in clinical writers and authors. They also have 140 continuing education classes at a very reasonable price. They're coming out with a brand new platform for front offices, videos. I mean, they are the premier magazine website. Go to www.decisionsindentistry.com. We're going to put this podcast up on the internet at the end of April. So we're recording here in the middle of April, beginning of April, I guess. And so a couple of things I want to share with you. Number one, through the California Dental Association, we are doing two programs in Northern California, which is, we call them our Now and Next programs. They will be Saturday, June 10th and Thursday, June 22nd. And what we're doing, doctors, is I will be there live, and I'm going to give you the locations and the times in a minute. But I will be there with our friends from Bank of America, and I'll be there with the folks from TDIC, Katie Fernelli from the CDA. And what we're doing is we're gearing these live lectures to dentists who are in their first 5 years of career, or maybe haven't even finished dental school. So, do I buy a practice? Do I start a practice? Do I go in partnership? Do I go to work for a DSO? What do I do? And we're going to have all the answers for you. So write these dates down. Saturday, June 10th, we just got this information. We're 95% sure that this is going to be at the Almanac Brew Company in Alameda, which is in Northern California. And that will be Saturday, June 10th. We'll do that from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. So we did one of these events at a brew company in downtown San Diego, and they have beer there. So if you like beer and wine, please do show up, and it's going to be a great event. Then we're going to do the same event in Sacramento, and that will be held at a venue called Aurora, which is in downtown Sacramento, Thursday, June 22nd from 5:30 to 10 p.m., and that that venue is right next to the CDA building. So I'm actually going to go up a little early and see a bunch of my friends at the CDA before we do that program. So if you want to sign up for those, go to www.cda.org. And I believe there is a place to click on to programs. Or if you are having trouble, let me know. I am at 657-279-3243. As well as my email, Wiederman, Wiederman, at eidebailey.com. And speaking of that, folks, we're just finished April 15th tax filing deadline. So if you are looking for a new CPA that knows everything and anything about the dental profession, please contact me. We got you covered, and we do so many things at Eide Bailey. It's frightening. So anyway, we'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're coming to the CDA convention, I am speaking 3 different times. I'm speaking from 9:30 to 11 on Friday morning. I'm speaking from 11 to 11:30 on Saturday morning, and I'm speaking from 1:30 to 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. They will all be on the subjects of transitions, younger dentists, older dentists, things like that. We are at booth 1472. Please come by and say hello. Tell me you've listened to the podcast. We're going to have the most important thing that you need to know about coming to our booth is we're going to have Hershey's chocolates. And the dentists love the Hershey's chocolates. And people say to me, I say, I'm bringing Hershey's chocolates to the CDA. And they say, wait a minute, these are dentists. They shouldn't be eating chocolate. No, they love chocolate. So don't worry about it.
Be sure to check out our new Eide Bailey podcast, Ebb and Flow, a business podcast providing inspired insight on issues and trends the middle market faces. Hear unique business stories, get answers to frequently asked and unasked questions, and understand business topics that matter to you. Available now on your favorite podcast platform.
Well, anyway, with that said, I'd like to get to my guest today. John Riley is the Executive Vice President of Amplify 360. John has been in his company for just over 20 years. And I'm going to let John tell you a little bit about himself. And so anyway, we're going to talk about, like I said, a little bit about maybe changing your relationship with insurance, and then all the things you want to know about marketing. So John Riley, welcome to the Art of Dental Finance and Management.
Well, thank you so much, Art. I appreciate that intro. And yes, I'm excited to be here. And a little bit about myself is that, like you said, is that I've been it started out with Tyson Steel. I was employee number 1 back in early 2002, in August of 2002, and been in the dental space since then. Before that, I was in the automotive industry, helping to market flip down TVs in cars, and we actually were the innovators here in Eugene. So I had to have 35 years of marketing and sales in different industries. So I'm glad to be a part of this.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Now, I understand, John, that you mentor young people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Is a big part of what my wife and I do is that we love to mentor college students. Why? Well, it keeps us young, right? We have 2 college-age students ourselves, as far as my son Braden and my daughter Michaela. But we actually grew up we actually met doing college ministry together, and it was
nice.
Something that we ended up doing, kept on going, and so we mentor college students, and one of which that I know that you had mentioned that you are a USC fan, and I'm an Oregon Duck. So
this could get ugly today. This could get ugly.
Well,
this could get ugly.
I'm a stats guy. I love numbers just like you do. And you love numbers, Art.
I do.
You're going to love this number. Maybe not. But one of the college students that we mentored, he happened to be a running back for University of Oregon. And he has now gone on to the NFL, and he's been in there in the NFL for now 11, I think is his 12th year. He happens to have 3 wonderful rings around his fingers from the Eagles to the Patriots, and then with Tom Brady down in Tampa, and Kenyon Barner.
Kenyon Barner. Oh yeah, he's real good.
But I won't rub this in too much. But one of my favorite stats of Kenyon is he had 321 yards rushing against USC.
All right, so that's the end of our podcast today. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later. So anyway. No, just kidding. No. We'll do, no. My audience knows that, I'm a graduate of Long Beach State University, and our football team is undefeated since 1993, since they disbanded the football program. So I had to pick a school, and that's the school so that means that all other schools will stop listening to this podcast. Oh, well, that's the way it goes. All right. Well, with that said, I could talk sports, you all know, for days and days. Let's get to our discussion, John. Let's talk about these PPOs. They seem to be a really hot topic right now, post-COVID. I mean, why? It seems like, they're a hot topic more than ever before. Talk a little bit about that.
That's a great question, Art. I think that's the $1 million question right now, is that a lot of doctors don't understand why that is. And until they start to dive into it, I'll give you a quick example, is that the ADA on March 9th, literally 30 days ago and 45 days ago or 50 days ago, since this podcast is going to air, is that March 9th of this year, ADA says 1 out of 6 dentists are getting out of PPOs right now.
I heard that. I heard that statistic yes, I did hear that statistic. That's true.
You can look it up online and read all about it. But the reason why this is the phenomenon. The phenomenon is this: is you start to look at what happened post-COVID. So if you start to look into the schedules of a doctor, well, once everybody started to come back, the number one thing was uncertainty, right? People didn't know, is it safe to come back or not? We all know that dentistry is the safest environment on the planet, and no matter what profession they're in. I don't care even what physicians or doctors, is that dentistry is the safest. So, but with that, there's a lot of uncertainty from patients for whatever reason, and they when they called to get in, now they're just calling to get in, and the front office teams are putting them in any part of the schedule anywhere, and they're just jamming them into the schedule and restorative schedule and hygiene. They're getting those patients in as soon as possible. Well, what happens is that lack of strategy and that lack of control over the schedule, of having the doctor really being in control, and oftentimes the doctor doesn't even know this is going on, is that by putting patients anywhere into the schedule, what happens is that recall gets booked up. Now they're getting booked up even further, because there's 2 types of doctors post-COVID. One is the absent doctor, the doctor that's not doing anything, that doesn't believe that they can ever come back from COVID. Therefore, they haven't ever marketed their practice. Patients, their own patients don't even know that if they're really wanting to practice because they're not confident in how they're communicating, either internally or from a marketing standpoint. Then the other type is more our type of doctor, is the ones that are saying, listen, in the midst of adversity, there's an equal or greater opportunity, right? And so now our doctors are saying, listen, let's take a hold of this and let's really take the area by storm. So they've been marketing and out marketing. Even many of our doctors marketed all the way through COVID, even when they were closed. Why? Not that patients were calling at that time, but what happens is that when they came back, guess whose phone was ringing off the hook for new patients? Well, all of this says is that post-COVID, there was turmoil, even with some of our doctors and the doctors coming in. There was so much demand where they said, John, I don't have any room for marketing because I have so many patients. So my recall is booked out 7, 8, 9 months. I don't have any room for anybody. Well, that's unfortunately, because of lack of process and strategy within the front office. Therefore, now the doctor is booked out so far that they don't have any room to really grow the practice, because the future of their practice is built in hygiene, of course. And go ahead.
And unfortunately, since we're talking about PPOs, a lot of these patients, John, that they're booked out with, they're getting 60 cents on the dollar based on their UCR. So they're actually, one of my friends in the consulting business would tell me, we would tell doctors, if they're going to continue to work with these PPOs, they should just have a bunch of cash in the front, the front compartment of the front office person's desk, and just hand the patients $100 as they walk out. Don't take payment, because it's costing them money to see these patients.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share a story a little later about remember this name, I'll call him Dr. Tennessee, so I can share you every bit about the practice. But that is so true, Art, about how they're giving away the farm, and they don't even know it. Because they don't know. I always say you need to know your metrics, and then you're going to be able to make excellent decisions because of your metrics. But going back to that, is that doctors are so far booked out that that they realize, I need to release the pressure on my practice somehow, some way. Well, the best way to do that is release the pressure on the lowest dollar amount per patient. So I don't want to make it so cold sounding, but when it comes down to it, if you have a patient that's investing $250 a year with you, and then you have your fee-for-service patients that are investing $1,650 a year, well, you'd have to have 7 or 8 of those in-network patients that would produce one fee-for-service. You're hemorrhaging money and you don't even know it. So this time is the greatest opportunity that we've ever seen. I've been doing it for 21 years, and I've never seen this opportunity before, which makes it very exciting, not for us, but for our doctors, because it's all about bringing freedom to practice the way that they really want to practice, even though they don't know if they really can get there. And
this is what we're talking about, doctors. You need to be working on your practice, not just in your practice. And part of it is a strategy for what are you going to do. So John, we're talking about these PPOs, and I mentioned earlier that 10 to 25%. That's about right. 10 to 25% of these patients will leave the practice, and there are a lot of doctors, unfortunately, who go out of network with PPOs without a coordinated plan. It takes a year, folks, to do this. You don't just send a letter to your patient and say, "Oh, hi, patients, we're out of network with XYZ company." You'll lose 80% of them. You have to start educating them. You start talking to them long before. So, 10 to 25%. I mean, that's about what you're hearing, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really just depends. There's that is a variable. There's so many different variables in there that it depends on the practice, depends on where the practice is located. It depends on how much goodwill does the doctor have. Did the doctor just take over the practice and then start dropping PPOs? There's so much strategy that has to go on behind this, but there's also things is that where is the practice located in the community? Is there a bunch of Is there military? Is there a bunch of corporate businesses that are supporting that practice? So there's a lot of different variables that go on here. And ultimately, it comes down to really the goodwill of the doctor. And in the end, the most I've ever seen is about 45%. And I'll tell you a story about 40%. If I can share this, is really good.
Sure, please do.
A doctor out of Sumner, Washington. So I'm going to protect our doctors by, these are real stories. These are not made up stories for this podcast or anything like that. These are real stories. And these doctors, if you ever wanted to, you can let me know and I can put you in contact with them. They would love to talk with you, because these are doctors that have gone through the pain of getting out of a network, but it's not one of them has ever said, I wish I would go back, right? Not one. And
nope,
so this
I
story,
agree.
I'm going to give you two quick stories. One is a doctor out of Sumner, Washington, where she was so gripped with fear. Now, she is an amazing clinical doctor. She's focused on clinical excellence. It's generally who our doctors are, the ones that are really trying to provide the top level of clinical care in their area, really doing more dentistry per patient than just being a drill, fill, and bill practice. That's not who we generally work with. So this particular practice was a doctor out of Sumner, Washington, wanted to become 100% fee-for-service. We'd talked about it for years. We've been working with her for about 7 years. Our average doctor worked with us for about 7 years. Our top doctors work with us for about 11 years, 11.1 years to be exact. So we have a long history with our doctors simply because of what we do and how we guide them through this process. But this particular doctor was so fun because I walked her front office, everybody through the process, from communication, when to send the letter, how to send the letter, what the letter should look like. And then on top of that, how they communicate with the patients. Well, this particular one, we had guided the front office. Her name is Annie. Annie was guiding the patient. The patient was walking in the door, and she says to the patient, we'll call the patient Sally. She said, Sally, I'm sure you've heard of how we've had to change the relationship with XYZ insurance company, and because of what they did to the doctor. And they go, what do you mean? What do they do to the doctor? And I won't give you her last name, but I said, what do they do to the doctor? It's like, oh, you didn't hear? Like, yeah, they have limited the quality of care so much so that we had to change the relationship, because our doctor is all about clinical excellence, and she never wants to apologize for a lack of result. Therefore, we had to change the relationship with insurance company because we care so much about you. Now the doctor is just finishing up in the back office. She walks up to the front, and she loves this patient. She knows who this patient's coming in because, of course, they have a huddle every day, knows who it is. And she heard her name. And so she comes up front, and the patient said to the doctor, said, Doctor, I will never, ever leave you, no matter what XYZ insurance company does to you. Count me in. And our doctor just started bawling because she was so worried about dropping XYZ PPO insurance that, life was going to be over. But here's the glory. Yes, she actually is one of our greatest losses as far as number of patients. But here's the key. Don't hang your hat on that stat. She lost 40% of her PPO insurance patients. But here's the key. When we we'll talk in a little bit about how to analyze the value of your actual patients, knowing your metrics. This particular with XYZ insurance company, the difference in what I say is, what is the mob boss willing to pay the dentist? The mob boss being whatever PPO insurance. If they're happy about paying you X fee, let's say $800 per patient per year, and they're happy about that, well, your fee schedule, doctor, shouldn't be anything close to that, because again, they're the mob. They're gonna, Vegas wasn't built on winners, and nor is insurance, right? So therefore, you should really make sure that your fee schedule, you're always increasing your fee schedule every year, especially if you're marketing, to increase that. Well, this doctor, we know, we've been working with her for 7 years now at the time, and we knew that she had been. So she had raised her fees so much that the difference between her fee schedule, or fee for service schedule, and XYZ insurance company. Was literally $1,000, or I think it was like maybe $1,100 per patient per year difference. We analyze this, we know all this in advance through our practice analysis. But that difference, because she had 40% on PPO insurance company, the ones that stayed actually increased her revenue so much that in the same year, she dropped XYZ insurance company and lost 40% of the patients. 60% of the patients stayed, actually increased her net collections over 27% of her entire practice. So she is so thrilled about dropping that, even though it brought a ton of anxiety through that process. She's like, I have the practice of my dreams now, John. Every single patient comes in. I'm fee for service, 100%. She's actually dropped the number of days. She's only working 141 days a year. Most doctors work 184 to 192. Our average doctor, we know that we can get every single doctor to $2 million in collections based on 150 days. She's one of them. She's actually doing on 140 days. And so that's story number one. Story number two is a doctor out of Tennessee. This doctor calls us up, and his wealth manager had referred him to us. And he calls us up and he goes, John, and we'll call him again, Dr. Tennessee. The last one was Dr. Washington, but this one was Dr. Tennessee. Dr. Tennessee says, John, I was supposed to call you, but I don't know why I'm supposed to call you. and
that's always a good phone call to get, right?
I know. And he goes, I go, what did your wealth manager say? And he goes, you need to call John and call Amplify 360 because the fact that you're not as profitable. I said, oh, so profit. So let's talk about how many PPOs do you have? And he goes, I think that's my problem. And I said, what's that? And he goes, well, I go, what's your collections? And what's your production? I generally don't like to talk about production because production doesn't mean anything unless you're collecting it, right? But if your production and your collections have a big gap, then I know that you're missing a ton of revenue that you're giving away to the insurance companies. Well, this one here was probably I may never hear something this drastic. He's a doctor out of Tennessee doing $3.8 million in production, single doctor practice.
Yeah, so it must be doing, quadrants and smile designs and all on fours and placing implants and
yes. If you guys could see Art's eyes when I said that, his eyes blew out.
3.8. Yeah, one doctor.
They blew up out of his head. When I said that?
Yeah, that's big.
Two numbers, 3.8 million, and I said, please tell me that you're not below 2 million in collections. And he goes, actually, I am. I said, or below 3 million in collections. And he goes, actually, I am. I go, what are you collecting? He goes, 2.2 million. So if you
gave up 1.6 million in write-offs from insurance companies.
Exactly. So now, as you know, I'm going to take out my calculator and do this with you. 1.6 million, divide that by 12, $133,000 a month that he's writing off. Now, this is key, doctor, for marketing for those crappy PPO patients that are robbing you blind.
Yeah, it's a marketing expense. You should put that down on your P&L as a marketing expense. I absolutely 100% agree with you, John. So
yeah, absolutely.
These are great stories and true stories. And folks, think about it this way. It's a very simple math problem, since John and I are required by law to do math on this podcast. Basically, if you lose 40% of your patients and you go out of network with XYZ insurance company, you're going to, you're going to make the same money and work 40% less with the 60% of the patients that you retain who you're charging full fee for service. So, all right, well, let's move on in this conversation, because I want to get into the marketing stuff, which is something I love. I should have got my degree in marketing instead of accounting, actually. But so, I mean, is it possible to drop, in your experience, PPOs without declines in revenue?
Yeah, is it, just like a story I shared just now, but here's the thing. We haven't had one doctor, if they follow our plan, because you can absolutely do it without a plan and see declines, because it's not strategic and not done in a process standpoint, meaning what are the best PPOs to drop and when. And so you can absolutely do it, and it can be done every single time if it's done with strategy. And basically how we work is this, is that the reason why it can be done without dropping in revenue is that you can either do it by hand and do it manually and figure out how to make it happen. But I'm going to tell you, it's a losing proposition, because most doctors, and whether it's you, doc, that I'm speaking to, or your friends, generally speaking, you have a sampling of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 practices max that you've ever worked with. Well, we with Art and myself, we personally have over 10,000 practices that we've worked with in the 28 years that we've worked with. We've purchased multiple companies over the years, and we've worked with over 10,000. So we have samplings of a ton of doctors that we have experience with, that we've walked through this process, and it's all calculated. So like Art was talking about earlier, is it has to be done in a way to where you want to reduce the lowest payers first, and then over time you're going to release the highest payers, which are still not your fee for service. And doctor, I'm going to tell you this: if your fee for service schedule matches your PPO schedule, shame on you. Why do I say that? And then a lot of doctors will say, well, why would my best paying clients pay the most? Because ultimately, you should get to fee for service someday, and you should ultimately get paid for what you deserve because of your clinical skill. And this is a quick question I always ask our doctors. Say, listen, if you're writing off 30% of your patients, or your fee schedule, here's a better way to explain it. If your fee schedule is at the 70th percentile or 75th percentile, is there literally 25% of the doctors in your area that are better clinically than you? Every doctor I've ever asked that, they always said, no, there's not. It's like, well, then why aren't you getting paid for what you're worth?
And why are you apologizing for your fees? That
Yes.
drives me absolutely crazy. I learned that early in the CPA world. In any professional service, if you're providing the ultimate professional service, whether it be dentistry, dental marketing, CPA, whatever it is, you need to charge a fee that is appropriate for that, and never apologize.
Right.
Well, that seems, I get this from consultants, John. It's just like, well, that's going to be, 10,000. Well, that seems high. Yeah, it does seem high. But for the level and quality of service that you're getting in this dental practice, Mrs. Smith, I can tell you that not only is it a fair fee, but it's going to change your life. These are the types of verbal skills that you need to be using. So,
One more thing on that, real quick. Is that the other thing that we do is that how do you know? Well, one thing that we've created since post-COVID, because of this balloon of doctors getting out of insurance, we've actually created a proprietary software that actually our doctors can tap into. And because you're listening to Art's podcast, is that I would offer to any doctor that wants this series. Now, we actually have 3 softwares we can work with: Dentrix, EagleSoft, and Open Dental right now. We're looking at others. But if you have one of those 3 softwares, I would be willing to do this as a complimentary analysis on if you're one of these doctors that want to get out of PPOs and want to do it right, is that this analysis, this practice assessment tool and analysis is so advanced that we can tell exactly what each, so like if you were to go into your Dentrix right now, there's no report that you can run to tell you how much are you producing per PPO. And then there's 1,000 deltas in there. There's 1,000 MetLifes and so on. You start to dive into that, you're not going to be able to figure out which one should I drop first and when. That's where we come in and be able to share with that software to be able to say, okay, here's exactly what your capacity of your practice is, with how many ops you have, how many team members you have, what your current mix of implants to crown and bridge and so on. And we put all that together along with your PPOs to say, okay, here's what your practice could be at if you lost 30% or 20% or 27% of your patients. We zero it out to say, listen, you can afford to lose and make this exact same amount of money if you were to drop Delta or drop Cigna or MetLife or whatever. and do it in this order. And here's exactly the dates of when you're going to send out the letters. Here's how you're going to communicate with your patients. We give you all of those step-by-step processes. And what Art was saying before is that you have two parts. You have, sure, we can drop the PPOs, but now we need to replace those patients that you might have open schedule to be able to say, okay, now what do we do to be able to fill those gaps?
I was going to get to this after I asked you the next question, but since you brought up your generous offer, John, so tell us a little bit about kind of what you do, and if someone is interested in talking to you, you'll obviously have a conversation with them, complimentary, to just kind of assess what they got going on. How do we tell us a little bit about what Amplify 360 does, and again, we're going to get into this as far as talking about a comprehensive marketing plan. But if they want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, easy enough. Is it easy thing to remember is amplify360.com. If you go to amplify360.com, and you're going to see that there's a get started button. They can get started there. I'm also going to give you on this podcast the ability to where they can, if you wanted to, you can shoot me a text. I'm very, very personable. I want to help. It's just like why we mentor college students.
Despite your school affiliation, you are actually very personable. We won't hold that against you.
We're not competitive at all, are we?
No, not at all.
Not at all. But we love helping doctors, love taking them to the next level, and we call it breaking through that ceiling of complexity. So I'm going to give you my cell number. My cell number is 541-206-3732. And because I'm either potentially traveling, meeting with doctors at events, speaking engagements, the easiest way to get a hold of me is shoot me a text and just say, hey, I heard the Art Wiederman podcast, and I don't like USC, but I really like Oregon.
See, this is why, John, I have no friends, because I do stupid stuff like that. But no.
That's all good. But you can shoot me a text and say, hey, I'd love to set up a call to talk about what you guys do and how you guys can help me to potentially get out of PPOs. But very much like how you guys all treatment plan is that you're not here to wrestle someone to the ground to get them to start your plan. If you show them your plan and show the value of what you guys do, the patient will start the plan or not. If they don't value what you guys do, they won't start the plan. Same with us, is that we don't get paid until you're ready to start. Same thing on how you get paid from a treatment plan standpoint. If they find value, they'll start. If you find value, you'll start with us. I don't want a dime until it makes sense that you're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you. Just like you might be looking for that right source, that right marketing source, we are doing the same thing with our doctors. We will turn away doctors if they're not ready to lead from the front, if they're not ready to, they like change but aren't willing to change. We, again, can't really help, because there's no magic bullet or magic pill that from a marketing standpoint. It's going to be, because you nailed it earlier, Art, is that culture development on communication. If you really want to become a fee-for-service practice or really want to become a world-class implant practice or what have you, we have to change the culture enough that makes it a world-class communication, a world-class practice that when they walk in, they leave with that wow feeling. It's a whole process. It's no longer a PPO mentality, or what I'll say, we compare PPOs versus your clinical excellence. PPOs is kind of like a dollar store. You're this Nordstrom level practice, but you have a dollar store kind of a marketing strategy. Let's change that to where now we can get that Nordstrom level strategy by texting me and or going to our website and clicking on getting started. Either way, it does not matter to me. We can then start that process and figuring out, see if we're a good match for you and you're a good match for us.
That sounds great. I want to get into now the gist of what I really want to, this is important conversation. Let's talk about the components of a comprehensive marketing plan to replace these patients that, if you do choose to go out of network with these insurance companies, that you're going to lose. So why don't you just start talking about, I come to you, Dr. Wiederman, I say, hey, John, I'd like Amplify 360 to do a comprehensive marketing plan. What are the steps?
Yeah, perfect. Great question. Before I get there real quick, I'm going to ask you one quick question. because you're a CPA, do you have doctors that have on the P&L? Do you have that doctors that use multiple marketing firms all at the same time?
Yeah, I do. They have, I see them, they might work with one main firm, but they'll pay a bunch of other people to have maybe one person doing their SEO and one person doing their social media so yes, I do see that a lot.
Right. Well, the reason why I asked that to start is that when we talk about a comprehensive marketing plan, is that the doctor deserves what we'll call marketing attribution, or an attribution engine. And what that basically summarizes when it comes to marketing is this: is that if a patient comes into a dental practice and says, "Hey, doctor, I'm going to use you for my cleanings. I'm going to use another doctor for implants. I'm going to use another doctor for my inlays and onlays." Do you think that patient, if they went to 4 or 5 practices, do you think that patient is going to ever get to that full, true oral health? No, they don't ever get there. Why? Because they have 4 or 5 doctors have all different opinions of what is it going to take that doctor or that patient to get healthy. And one doctor may just be an Invisalign doctor. Another doctor may be an implant doctor. That's all they really want to sell. So they sold them implants and they're good, but they're really not getting them to excellent oral health. That's what marketing attribution is, or it's lacking in most practices. When you talk about a comprehensive plan is that all of your pieces, whether it's Google, SEO, whether it's local search, so the map section, whether it's social media, having great testimonials on social media for big case, and we'll talk about that, or if it's streaming ads, or if it's direct mail, whatever it is, marketing attribution needs to speak to one another in such a way that it benefits the doctor. So if you have 4 or 5 services, I can guarantee you right now, 4 or 5 different marketing firms, you're using some big, some small, like what Art was saying. The problem is the only person that's losing is you. Now, there's other marketing firms out there, but I'll tell you, I've been doing it long enough that we're solely focused on developing fee-for-service, profitable practices, increasing the revenue per day, increasing the value per patient, and then ultimately reducing the number of days a doctor works if they want to, and increasing the amount of what they're doing per day, to where that they get to see this beautiful part of thing unfolding right in front of them, to say, listen, I can work fewer days and do a lot more collections and a lot more production. Absolutely, that's what we want to do. So marketing attribution is the only tool that if they don't have it, everything is not working together congruently, because you're not under one roof. That's what we do. So when you talk about a comprehensive plan, that's where everything starts to speak to one another. So if you're on Google, if you're going to social media, and you guys have seen this already, is that you go on Google and then you go on your Instagram or whatever, and you start to get those same ads of what you were just looking at, right? Everything needs to speak to one another, because then it's going to maximize the doctor's dollar. That's what it all comes down to. Maximizing the dollar. Now we can start to see trends of what people are looking for, what people are really wanting in your practice. Are people in your area searching for, I'll say this, Ford F-150 pickups or Mercedes? If all they're wanting to buy is Ford F-150 pickups, we need to figure out how to sell your practice in a way that sells more Ford F-150 pickups, but selling them at a Mercedes quality, right? That's the key. So is your area looking for a certain style of product or service? We need to figure out what that looks like. So that's marketing attribution is such a key component that's never talked about, because if a doctor has a website with somebody else and SEO and Google with somebody else, I can tell you that you're losing a lot of revenue, doctor, because they're not speaking to one another. There's not one umbrella that's controlling that entire message and maximizing your dollar. Does that help, Art?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to know. Now, I want to get into the weeds about some of these specific marketing tactics. Let's start with SEO. Everybody hears about, I need to have SEO, and even remember, I tell my audience that I have adult children, so they can, for the sole reason of helping me with technology and all this stuff. So I know that SEO means search engine optimization. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Hey, you gotta like that. Talk about SEO. What do we do on that? I mean, are we talking about Google ads? Are we talking about what are we talking about here in SEO?
Absolutely. So yes, SEO is real. SEO is a massive part of a doctor's foundation. Why? Because if it's done right, so I'll say two parts. There's SEO, search engine optimization, and there's also local search. Both of those are what we'll call organic marketing, to where it's done in the design and in the back end of your campaigns, to where if it's done right, now that becomes the foundation of your marketing. All that does also too is it relieves the stress of what you have to put on PPC. So on pay-per-click advertising, let's say on Google, you can have just a Google campaign. Just that's all you have. You're not really focusing on SEO or local search or what have you. You can have just a campaign focused on pay-per-click. But here's the problem. If you do, your pay-per-click ads are going to need to be a lot more revenue. Why? You need to lean on those ads to get the benefit of what you're missing out of SEO and of local search. And a big part of our company is focusing on that. And so actually we actually, for our doctors, we can tell exactly how many patients are coming in from local, how many are coming in from organic, how many are coming in from PPC. And then we call ourselves tactic agnostic. We don't care in the end, like a good wealth manager would say, I don't care what funds you're actually investing in, as long as your revenue and your ROI is getting the right rate of return and it's safe enough and it's secure enough that you're generating the right outcome in the future.
You're a sports guy, I can tell. So I'm sure you've heard of Jim Rome, the sportscaster. Yep. He always says scoreboard. That's what we're talking about here. What does the scoreboard say? How many new patients are we getting, and are they the right types of patients? I want to talk about websites for a second. So when I talk to a client, especially a new one of the first things I'm going to do, and I'm not a marketing expert like you are, I will literally go onto the internet, I'll go onto Google, and I'll say, let's put in John Riley DDS, Eugene, Oregon, all right? Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, they're not on the first page. And forget about the paid advertising, because that's obviously at the top because it's paid. But they're on the first page, they're on the second page. Sometimes we'll find them on the 5th or 6th page. So, I mean, realistically, John, in this life, if you're not one of the first 2 or 3 on the first page, you might as well not be on the internet. So talk about, website and how we get to it. How does that work?
Hey, everybody, Art is coming to work for us.
Well, no, I mean, I know enough stuff to be very dangerous. And I've been, I've been to enough, marketing talks and talked to enough people that I understand how this works. So talk about that.
No, absolutely. Is that you're absolutely right, Art. It's not just because you said it and I'm not giving you lip service here. Is that it's true? Is that the front page, the first page? I mean, think about it. Is it how many times when you're searching on Google, we're such a microwave society that we want it now. How many times have you gone to the second or third or fourth page? I can't remember when I've done that. And the only time I would say I'm doing that is if I'm trying to look for a very, very specific like jacket that is now out of stock somewhere, and I'm searching until I can't, until it's like, okay, no one has any stock of it. But on an average basis, when I'm looking for a restaurant or looking for a dentist or looking for this or that or the other, is it generally it's only the first page, and I'm gonna find it on the first page, and then usually in the top 3 or 4. So if your website right now, it doesn't have proper organic rankings, so SEO, that you're on page 2 or page 3, oftentimes it might be the design of the website entirely. Well, oftentimes doctors will say, well, I like the look of my site. And I go, well, how many new patients do you get a month? They go, about 4 or 5. And I said, well, actually, you should hate your website. And they go, why do you mean that? And they're like, well, I don't care how pretty something looks, but if it's not generating you revenue to where you're not generating new patients from your website is the engine for everything. 30 years ago, we used to remember the phone number. right? The phone number was what everybody memorized. I remember as a kid, I used to have 30, 40 different phone numbers as a kid. I'm 54 years old, and I'm dating myself here, but I used to remember the phone numbers. Nowadays, phone numbers are not what people memorize. They memorize website addresses, right? So that's the foundation of what you need to build, doctor, on and really focus on. So if your website is not driving in the number of new patients, and the number of new patients and the website go hand in hand. How it's working and how good it is reflective of the number of new patients that you have or don't have.
Isn't it also important, John, for a website to be congruent, not only on a computer, but with your handheld device? That's
even
important. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, even more so in the handheld device. This is a great question. 75%, actually even 80% of the searches right now for dentists are being done with a handheld, with an iPhone or an Android. And so sites have to be designed from a mobile standpoint. I can't even remember. I think it was like 2013 when we made the major switch to that. It's been growing and growing ever since. Mobile absolutely key for. The other thing that's missing on most sites today is that this is the hidden morsel that if you heard this, now our doctors know this because they go, John, you've taught me this for years, is that one of the easiest ways to sell dentistry is by getting your patients to brag about you. And what I mean by that is that if you don't have any patient testimonial videos or patient testimonials all over your site, and it's you telling the story or your website telling the story, you're bragging about yourself versus your patients bragging about you. Give you a quick example. Is Dr. Clay Hansen? I can give you this because he's allowed me to share. He's done podcasts with me, and I can share this data. He started with us. He followed us for 10 years, from 2005 to 2015. He says, I can't afford to work with you from 2005 to 2015. 2015 comes along. His practice had not changed a bit, basically the exact same. He didn't even keep up with the level of inflation in that 10 years. At that 10-year mark, he called us up and goes, John, I can't afford not to work with you. Okay. Transition. Now he's nearly doubled his collections. He is this last year, we attracted 19 full arch cases. The year before was 6. So we're starting to see this growth. This year he's on track for 26. So the whole piece to the puzzle is that the reason why is because we've talked about on his website, he needs to have excellent patient testimonials. Now there's more to this, but the piece is that if a doctor has patient testimonial videos on their website that they can future patients can see, that then the patients are actually bragging about them. Quick, go ahead.
Do you like to see those testimonials? And I've seen them. I like them like right as soon as you click right at the top of the first page, there's a patient testimony. Is that where you like to put them, or do you put them somewhere else?
Again, you're amazing. Is that we call that the fold of a website. Yeah. You want to see something right either at the fold or right below the fold of the website. So the patient doesn't have to scroll very far to see that, because it's what we call social proof. Social proof says other people have done it, so can I. Therefore, if we have a whole bunch of social proof showing that on the website, going back to Clay, a patient in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Clay is in Moscow, Idaho. It's a nowheresville. And Clay knows this. It's meaning no one knows where Moscow, Idaho. Everybody knows where Coeur d'Alene is. If you're in Idaho, everybody knows where Coeur d'Alene is. It's where the rich live. Well, he wanted to start marketing in Coeur d'Alene. It's an hour and a half through the mountains and trees to get to Coeur d'Alene, get to Moscow. We started marketing there, and a patient printed out. Who does this? Well, this patient printed out 11 websites. He circled all the patient testimonials of what he could see on those printouts, and not one but Clay. Clay had a plethora of testimonial videos. Out of the 11, the patient goes, listen, this hour and a half, no other doctor in Coeur d'Alene has patients that are bragging about him. I'm gonna go down to Clay. That he goes, now that patient has created a patient testimonial video now because he's a patient of his. That hour and a half has changed my life. So we're not only able to attract from a local area, but also start attracting from Google standpoint, or what we call OTT, is over-the-top marketing, streaming ads that are very tailored to fit a very specific audience. For if you want to be known for implants, we can target for boomers and seniors only, or start targeting for Invisalign or whatever with teens and adults. These types of things can be done through strategic marketing in that comprehensive plan.
Talk about, I want to hit, because we're getting to the end of our time. Time just flies so much when I have a great interview like this. Let's talk about direct mail. Do you use direct mail anymore?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Direct mail is very unique, is that we've been known to be the number one USPS client in Oregon, meaning we're from Oregon. Our where we mail everything from is from Oregon. USPS has told us that we beat out Nike, HP, and the only time that we ever get beat out is voters pamphlets.
or if Oregon's going to be in a national championship game and they're marketing. No, go ahead. Just kidding. Go ahead.
So yes, but it's not in every market. So very much like how a doctor has implants, inlays, onlays, and bridges and so on. Just because they offer everything doesn't mean the patient gets everything. Just because we offer target direct mail doesn't mean that that they need to do direct mail, because some people like implants versus bridges, right? So just because we offer direct mail doesn't mean that the doctor gets it. If they're in a downtown, let's say downtown San Francisco, there is no way we would ever, I don't care if the doctor's willing to pay us thousands and thousands of dollars to do it. I wouldn't do it. Because why? It's not going to work in certain areas, because the market of where patients have to come from is not just in downtown. They're traveling in 20, 30, 40 minutes to get into work. Therefore, their homes are not. We can't market to businesses, so we market to residents, of course, and those patients are coming in from too far. So direct mail is another tactic. We'll determine whether a target direct mail tactic is what a doctor should use. But if a doctor says, "Hey, I only want to be digital," great, we're going to do digital. In certain situations, we're going to say, "Listen, you're missing out on this market because the difference between targeted direct mail and Google is this." Google, you have to be searching for a dentist. Direct mail, why Nordstrom, why Bed Bath & Beyond, why Mercedes, why every top company in the world, Neiman Marcus, everybody does it, uses direct mail. Why do they do it? Is because they're persuading people to consider you when I don't know, did you know that Google uses direct mail?
No, I didn't know that.
If you type in Google uses direct mail and Google Inc. Uses direct mail, you're going to get 20 pages of reports on why Google uses it. Why does Google use it? Google uses direct mail, and this is not our own. We are tactic. I don't care what tactic we're doing for you, but a lot of people go, direct mail is a dead horse. Ask Google, ask Nordstrom. Nordstrom stopped using direct mail, and it tanked their business so much that they had to lay off a giant chunk of their workforce. Okay,
so interesting.
The direct mail persuades people to consider you when they woke up that day and they weren't even considering a doctor, weren't even considering getting a new smile or getting implants or this or that or the other, or a 6 or 8 unit anterior veneer case. They weren't considering that until they showed up in the mailbox. They go, I'm gonna think about that.
But doctors, and here's interesting. I want your comment on this, because I've heard this a lot. I'll get a doctor who will literally call me up and say, I'm going to spend $5,000. I'm going to send out one 20,000 piece mailer, and that's going to bring me patients. And I'm just going to do the one. And I go, yeah, no. I mean, marketing, John, it's about brand recognition. I mean, I'll take an example. I mean, these jingles on TV, you might have heard the one for 1-800 Cars for Kids.
Yes. Yep.
The jingle, right?
Yep.
I mean, that gets stuck in your head, Capital One, who's in my wallet. I think that's what it is. Yep. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to create brand recognition. So when you're doing direct mail, you're doing this over and over again, right?
No, 1,000. Yeah. Two things is when I met my wife, I didn't know her. I didn't know her enough to be able to say on day one that we're getting married, right? Why? Well, you had to have so many impressions, right? We had to build trust over time. So after 9 months of dating, I knew that she was the one, and now we've been married 26 years. It's a great example of how any marketing, you need that number of impressions. Give you another quick story. Dr. April Zigley had been using direct mail for years and years and years. And she goes, John, I got to tell you the story of this patient that just came in. I said, oh yeah, what happened? And she says, this patient came in and says, okay, doctor, I saved, this is true. It sounds so ridiculous. I have a video that I can even share with any doctor who ever wants to see it from April, that this patient comes in and goes, I collected 7 brochures and put them underneath a magnet on my fridge. So first of all, who would do that? Well, this patient did. Saved 7 of them. This is all so crazy. Saved 7 of them, and by the 7th one, so after 7 straight months, so month after month, every month, it took 7 months. The patient goes, Dr. Zigley's not going to stop marketing to me, so I might as well call her. Okay, true story.
Well, that's one way to do it.
She does a 7 or 8 unit anterior case on her. Her husband does a full arch. Her husband's mother does a 6 or 7 unit anterior case, and her husband's mother's boyfriend does a 7 or 8 unit. She goes, John, I think I got close to $60,000, I think $56,000 of revenue off of that one patient that saved 7 brochures. And to your point, it doesn't happen on one. She would have lost that patient. After 7, she got it. And this could be with any marketing. It could be social media. It could be Google. It could be OTT. It could be anything.
Yeah, 2 more things we got to hit, and then we'll call it a podcast. Social media marketing, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. What do you like to do with them?
Yeah, I love it. Those are what I call the backup singers. Is that Google is going to be your lead singer, but the backup singers make a full sound, right? Make a rich sound, make it that much more enjoyable. Same thing goes in your marketing campaign structure. Is that having a comprehensive plan that what I'll say is turning over the rocks. Is that if a doctor gets a direct mail, good example, Dr. Studeris out of Washington, we had a direct mail piece. But if we just stopped there and didn't have all the other components, and I'll say social media in a second, we would have lost this doctor's opportunity. Why? Because this doctor got a direct mail piece, went online, started searching for IV sedation dentistry or dental anxiety, and then started to look for cosmetic dentistry. Every rock that this doctor or this patient, prospective patient, was looking for a $40,000 second opinion case. Every rock turned over Scott Studeris. Doctor calls up and says, Doctor, I saw you on social media. I saw you on Google. I saw you everywhere I turn. And I'm wasting my time looking for a second opinion. So I'm going to come to you first. And if it doesn't work out, then that's my problem to find somebody else. That patient came in, and the case is closed. The $40,000 case started, and because every rock, to your point, is that every rock that patient started looking, whether social media, whether it was on Google, whether it was on other social media platforms, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Pinterest, even for big cases, there's a lot of different ways that you can market. The big thing on social media, I'd say this is, doctor, if you want to change the trajectory of your big cases, do it through big cases as far as before and after photos, patient testimonial videos. Have them post it on. This is the nugget that I'm going to give you for free. Is that have them. So if you have a patient testimonial video and you capture it in the practice, ask the patient to post that on their own social media and tag you, and then you're going to do the same. Why? You now have access to their 1,000 followers on their social media. And that's instant. We have a doctor in Boston that gets 5 to 10 patients every time they do that. So there's strategic things you can do to really position your practice, but it has to be done from a comprehensive standpoint. We'll do a full comprehensive analysis for each and every one of you that are wanting to see if we're a good fit. And ultimately, the worst that you'll learn is a ton of it. You'll be educated on marketing, because even if you spend an hour, 2 hours with us, whatever, we'll spend, initially it's going to be 30 minutes. But let's say
last thing I want to touch on, John, is key campaigns. Things like if you want to market specifically on-fours or implants or full arch or sleep dentistry. So I think I've told my audience knows that a dentist saved my life and got me on a CPAP machine 15 years ago. So I'm a big proponent of sleep dentistry in a dental office. Talk about specific key campaigns and how you do that, and then we'll let you give out your information one more time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we really, when it comes to big cases, it's going to be nearly 100% digital campaign. Marketing attribution and creating a marketing engine is absolutely key here. Why? Because we track the transition of what the patients are looking for. How many times are they coming in looking for implants or sedation? Now those things are known to our doctors, so our doctors are now educated to go, they not only came in looking for IV sedation, but they also came in looking for full arch dentistry or an all-in-4, all-in-6 or whatever. Now the doctor's educated when they talk with that patient, and so on. So the marketing attribution, focusing on big case, and then the magic tool here is what we call OTT. OTT is over-the-top streaming ads that when you have Google, your website, social media, all of that, and you tie in OTT with a big case campaign. Let's say you're focusing on, you want to be the full arch doctor in your area, or you want to be implant focused or whatever. OTT is going to be the piece that drives to your website. They're not going to call from OTT, but if they're watching a Hulu or Netflix or Prime, they're watching a TV show. They're not going to go off of that. They have to watch those ads. 94% of the people that are 64% of the people in most streaming don't pay for removing the ads, but 94 to 97% of the people that are actually watching do not click out of those ads to finish their TV show. Therefore, you have a captive audience right then and there, unlike cable TV where they can fast forward. So there's a whole strategy that we do depending on what the tactic or what service that you're wanting to provide, to be able to walk through that, and it's all calculated.
John Riley, Executive Vice President of Amplify 360, just absolutely fantastic information for our audience. Real quick, again, how can our listeners get a hold of you? And you'd said you'd made an offer of a complimentary service you might offer them. So kind of walk through that and just let them know how we can how they can get a hold of you. Then please stay with me as I take the podcast out.
Yes. Thank you, Art. Yes, two simple things, two ways to get a hold of me. One is through amplify360.com. You click Get Started and just fill out your information, and we'll get in touch with you. Number two is if you want a little more discussion before getting started, no sweat. You can text me at 541-206-3732. I'd be happy to talk with you in whatever length, because again, I'm all about education. What we'll do at that point is that we will set you up with what we call a practice growth call. A practice growth call is we'll figure out what are your goals, aspirations, dreams, and hopes and desires. Where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Some of you might say, I don't have 3 years left in dentistry. Great. We want to know what those 3 years consist. Or if you're just getting started, hey, we want to look out 10 years and now we'll work backwards from there. We develop a what we call a practice roadmap. We'll do all this complimentary for you. And if you have Dentrix, EagleSoft, and Open Dental, one of those three, we'll actually do another level. Again, this is all complimentary before you start, is that we can analyze your practice and say exactly how many, what's your PPO mix look like, what's your payer mix look like, and we can figure out how to take you from just a new patient standpoint, getting through that payer mix level, and then ultimately getting you into that case mix level. We'll do all that as far as a complimentary, comprehensive plan before you ever start.
John, thank you so much, and really appreciate the great information. Folks, marketing, I had a business mentor 25 years ago who told me something that I still stick with today. The day you stop marketing your business is the day your business starts to die. So you never, ever want to stop marketing your business. So like I say, John, hang with me for a minute. Folks, again, I want to thank you for the honor and privilege of your time and listening to my podcast. We have thousands and thousands of listeners who download all of our podcasts. It's a 4.5 year library of the business of dentistry, financial and management and marketing. And gosh, I think I've interviewed everybody on everything. I talk about stuff myself. Really proud of the work we do. Make sure you go on to onto your podcast app and download, take a look at all the subjects. It's a library. It's literally a library. If you're looking for information on virtually any topic regarding the business of dentistry or financial planning and dentistry, anything like that, it's there. Make sure you go to our partner Decisions in Dentistry's magazine, www.decisionsinDentistry.com. 140 great continuing education courses at a very reasonable price, and they got a lot of new stuff coming out, which we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks and months. Make sure you come and see me at the California Dental Association Convention, booth 1472. That's May 18th to the 20th. in Anaheim at the Anaheim Convention Center, and make sure that you register for the live courses I'm doing through the California Dental Association. If you're in Northern California, we're going to be in Alameda on June 10th from 10 to 2:30 in the afternoon on Saturday at a wonderful brewery. And on June 22nd, we're going to be in Sacramento downtown at a great events venue. We're going to be talking to young dentists about where to take your career. And with that said, this is Art Wiederman for the Art of Dental Finance and Management with Art Wiederman, CPA. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Art of Dental Finance and Management podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. The Art of Dental Finance and Management podcast is produced by Eide Bailly in partnership with Art Wiederman, CPA, Decisions in Dentistry Magazine, and the Academy of Dental CPAs. For audience questions and feedback, email Art Wiederman, awiederman@eidebailly.com. That's AWIEDERMAN @EIDEBAILLY.com. Or you may call Art at 657-279-3243.